host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear.
Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. Today is June 17th, 2016, and it is flying by. And it's also call-in Friday, so let me give you the phone number in case anybody out there is listening. You know what, I was supposed to call Mimi Gurman and give her the number. I hope she had the wherewithal to figure it out. The number is 718-717-8296. 718-717-8296. And, I have a lot to speak about if nobody calls in, because yesterday I have been working with Mimi Gurman, who actually went in and I'll let her tell the story if she. I'm going to try to send her the number, but she met with Bill McKibben. She actually met him in Portland up there. But I have been doing some research. I read this story yesterday called "Environmental Groups Change Tune on Nuclear Power." It was in the Wall Street Journal, and this was really interesting. This is how they love to spread it in your face. This morning on the Googles, this story was listed twice, because I have a tag to search for nuclear on the Googles. And you know what happened here? I could not believe it. These three environmental groups are working with Exelon to reopen those two nuclear power plants that have been closed down because they are catastrophes. They have an $800 million loss over 7 years. State of Illinois said, no thanks, we're not giving you money. You're not providing us enough electricity. You're a catastrophe. You have spills. You have leaks. You haven't figured out jack. So no, we're not doing anything. And these three groups of people, to be honest, it is a shock. For me, it's beyond control. I have never seen anything so egregious in all my life. The Natural Resource Defense Council, the Environmental Defense Fund, and the Sierra Club. Now, let us talk about their mission statements. I'm livid because, I am a tax resolution specialist in my for real life. I help people, although, I have to say, I have been very busy helping people fix their tax problems lately, which I have to apologize to my tax prep clients because I am late on getting my work done, because right now, the IRS right now is using rules that they've never enforced. So it looks a little egregious, but they have the right to do it. Thank Congress for that one. Environmental Defense Fund, Inc., their mission statement. EDF mission is to preserve the natural systems on which all life depends. NRDC's mission is to safeguard the earth, its people, its plants and animals, and the natural systems on which all life depends. Sierra Club, to explore, enjoy, we love Californians, and protect the wild places of the earth. Practice and promote responsible use of the earth's ecosystems and resources. Educate and enlist humanity to protect and restore the quality of natural and human environment. Use of all lawful means to carry out these objectives. Sierra Club. Now, these three organizations are working with Exelon. Now, what they say in the story essentially, oh my gosh, I was livid. But then the reason I'm not reading the story is because wait till you understand the funding. They're basically saying, well, we know it's really bad, but we're going to help them keep it open. We know it has to be closed. We're going to help them keep it open so we can shut down those coal mines and close down those coal mines. And I went, He says his group is focusing on most of its resources on closing coal plants and preventing construction of new natural gas plants. You know what? This is the reality. Natural gas plants, pretty soon all they're going to have to do, just like in, where is it? Bayou Corn in Louisiana. You know how they've kept that place from exploding? They put pipes in the bottom of the bayou straight up to vent the methane that's coming out. So natural gas, prevent natural gas. Do these people even understand how decrepit those nuclear power plants are? I left a message on one of the guy that's in New York, the most egregious, because New York, their address is 420 Street, New York, 10011, 40 West 20th Street. I'm sorry, Natural Resource Defense Council. Now, the guy's name is Peter Lerner. Here's another one in New York. Frederick D. Krupp. He is the principal officer. Environmental Defense Fund. New York, 257 Park Avenue South. Must be rough. You know how much this organization brings in a year? Brings in $147,163,910. Now, that was their 2013. Did not have the 2014. So, they're supposed to have their tax returns listed, I think, within 6 months. I'm going to double check the law. But I'm pretty sure within 6 months they have to have their tax returns if they're over a certain limit, which they are. They need to have their tax returns. This is 13. We need 14. You know why I want to know 14? Just the same reason I'm going to ask them for the list of their tax returns and their 2015 donors. I want to know who's paying them. Ching, ching, ching. You should see their salaries, man. Fucking Kevin Blanch was not wrong. He and I used to talk about this all the time. Here we are. Environmental Defense Fund, who I just said, how much did they make? $147,163,910 in 2013. This organization is stepping in and going to be working with Exelon. Other contributions, $136,607,897. Now, they did not even put out their Schedule B that said how much their contributions were. But this is 2013. Hopefully they corrected that, or we'll just request it. I'm going to request the names of all the contributors. Anybody over, I don't know, $100,000 or $50,000. I want to know who they are. This is a lot of money. You know what the guy's salary, did I tell you that? This guy is like making bank. All these people there, like for real. This is Now, I understand the argument. Oh, well, they're highly paid and for their industry and comparable to how much money they make. Excuse me, this is a non-profit. Frederick D. Krupp, president, makes $509,111 in, oh my God, in 2013, on top of estimated amount other compensation from the organization and related organizations. Guess how much this is? $57,102. That's just about what most people in this country make, is about 50, 60 grand. If you have a decent job, you make about that. Maybe between 45 to 60 grand, you can probably live halfway decent. Let's keep going, folks. This is just, now we know why they're working with Exelon. And you know what I did? I actually did a tapping session to forgive these people. I actually really forgive them for listening to the wrong people. Look, they have the money. Take the money and run. You know how much they have left over? My guess is they have boatloads of money already in their banks. And yeah, I know they live in New York, but you know what? They fucking need to evacuate New York, those dumbass bastards. They're drinking tritium in their water, and I don't care what kind of filter you have on your apartment complex or your condominium, your multi-million-dollar condominium. You cannot filter out tritium. You need to evacuate New York. And I am sorry, but that is the way I feel about it. And these guys of all dumbasses ought to know. And that brings me to something else I don't want to talk about later. Let me give you the phone number. It's 718-717-8296. You're listening to Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show on UCY.TV. Thank you for joining us. It is really awesome to be here with you again. And I have to say that, I'm coming on for just about a year now. And it's been an interesting journey. Last week, people called in and said, yeah, we've noticed a difference in your style since you've been on air. Well, I don't know if that's a compliment or not. Nobody said you're getting better. But the bottom line is, it's been a long year. I've had a really heavy journey in the last year. There's been a lot of stuff going on in my life nobody knows about. And part of that is why I want to talk to you guys about Father's Day while we're waiting for people to call in. It's 718-717-8296. This thing about Father's Day is coming up in a few days. It's kind of like a man-made, what do they call that, a Hallmark holiday where somebody decided it was going to be a holiday, so now we have Father's Day. It's not a bad idea. I don't mind the idea of honoring our parents. I think it's a great idea. But I think, I have shared with you before that my childhood was not easy, and that's partly why my life has been a little hard in the last year and a half or two. Actually, since I think I let my family back in my life around 2013. So it brings up issues that I had preferred to not think about. And one of them is this issue of fathers. And Father's Day is coming up, and I love my dad. I was the one kid who never got abused. So for all those people out there, the men out there, I know there's men listening to my radio show. And men know who they are that have been too rough on their kids, too hard on their kids. They broke up with the mom, never talked to him again, walked away from them, did all kinds of things. Like those things affect your children, and they live with them forever. Here I am, 60 years old, and I'm living with the errors that my own father did when he was a young father, and messed up. I mean, beyond messed up. And I think, life just wore him out. Like, he's not a hideous person. But what matters to people is when you apologize. And I think Father's Day should be the day when those men who have made errors with their own children, and Mother's Day the same way. I feel the same way about Mother's Day also. If you make errors as a mother or as a father, use Mother's Day. Don't expect your kids to come kneel at your frickin' feet. You need to use that day to go apologize to them, reconcile, enjoy the day. Life is short, as we are experiencing here with these three dumbass organizations about to start two nuclear power plants in Illinois that they have agreed to shut down, that are decrepit and falling apart. And these nuclear priests think that it's all okay. Don't worry. It's all going to be fine. No, folks, not going to be fine. In fact, it is not fine. And I do not understand why people are not jumping up and down over this. I mean, it is beginning to slowly dawn on people. I get it. I get it completely. So, anyways, I'm trying to send Mimi the phone number so in case she can call, I want her to talk about her experience with the Bill McKibben thing. Let me tell you what, I'm going to read you this story because this is egregious. It came out in the Wall Street Journal. I printed it out. It makes me so angry. June 16th by Amy Harder, 2016, published 2:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Some of the nation's most influential governmental groups are softening their long-standing opposition to nuclear power, marking a significant shift in anti-nuclear movement as environmentalist priorities shift to climate change, as if the two are separated. It is beyond believable that these, you know why it is not beyond believable? Because of these 990 frickin' forms. Because of this bull that these guys are doing. They're like making bank because I guess what? I guess they have just decided, you know what? We're not leaving New York because we're all fucked anyways. We're all just going to die anyways, so we might as well just live here in New York, enjoy our lives, die of cancer. Who cares? Plan for our kids, let them die of cancer. If we leave them enough money, they can manage the mutations that's bound to pop up in their lives. Right? Is that really how it is? No. I'm not playing that game. That is just unbelievable. I mean, I am shocked. I don't know why I'm always shocked, you guys. So if anybody wants to respond, it's 718-717-8296. In the meantime, I'm going to keep reading. Okay, the change is lowering one of the biggest political hurdles facing the nuclear power industry in the U.S. and comes at a critical time as several financially struggling reactors are set to shut down. Because the historical context is that these groups were opposed to nuclear, their absence on the opposition front is noticed, said Joe Dominguez, Executive Vice President for the Governmental and Regulatory Affairs for Exelon Corp, the biggest owner of nuclear power plants in the United States. I think it's pretty significant. I guess so, $500,000. And you know what? This is really, want me to tell you why I think they have not put up their 2014 tax return? We only have the 2013 online. I'm going to ask for 2014, and I'm going to ask for the current 15-year current donors. I want to know how much money they just got. Because you know what? This is outrageous. These people, their mission statement, I'm going to write an opposition letter and ask if they do not, I personally, professionally, and as a citizen, I'm going to put it on my own letterhead and represent myself with the IRS. And we can get a petition coin because this is against their core mission statement, folks. We can have them revoked, and these guys would all have to pay income taxes on this money. 2013, you know what their balance sheet showed? Their leftover net assets and fund balances? End of year, $203,950,000. So everybody there is digging in the kitty as well as, quote, helping the earth. If this is helping the earth, no thanks. We don't need you. And I personally, unless these people change their tune, they have not done their own homework on the harm that is causing the people and the life in that environment. Anybody who looks at nuclear on their own, away from the nuclear propaganda, will see the truth. And it is an outrage. $500,000. I mean, really? You need to make $500,000 a year? $500,000 environmental defense fund to help the planet. You know, me and Kevin Blanche used to talk about getting money so we could live, and we often thought about this. What if somebody gave us a boatload of money? How much would we take? Me, Tom, the three of us, we'd sit on the phone, we'd talk, we would Skype, we'd talk. And you know what? There is no way. We all actually agreed to take this type of income is egregious. The idea is to, even no matter how much money they're taking in. Okay, so they've got consultants telling them that that's the appropriate amount of salary, just like those Christians. You know, that's why I stopped giving money to Joyce Meyer Ministry in 2004, folks. Like, for real, when I saw that, you want to tell me what turned me away from, like, the Christian religion? Unbelievable. The phone number, if anybody wants to call in, is 718-717-8296, 718-717-8296. And so if you want to give us a call, you can. I'm going to keep reading this article, although I'm not doing a good job of it because I am just spitting nails. I cannot believe it. Okay, let's get back to it. Nuclear power, which emits no greenhouse gases, provides roughly 20% of U.S. electricity and 60% lie of carbon-free electricity, according to federal data. Federal data given to them by the nuclear industry. They're just like, oh, here, shove these lies down your throat and spew them out to the American people. Pressed by cheap natural gas and state policies that favor renewables over nuclear power, roughly a dozen reactors are either poised to shut down in the coming years or already have. And honestly, let's see if someone's calling in. Hold on. Good morning. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show.
Good morning, Lonnie. This is Candace.
Hi, Candace. Where do you live? Don't you live back there? Back east somewhere?
Ohio.
Yeah, that's close to these. Aren't you downwind or are you upwind of that?
Oh, I'm downwind and upwind.
Yeah, this is so outrageous. You know those two... Go ahead.
I'm between Davis Betsy and Perry Nuclear. You know. Yeah.
Wow.
I need to tell you, honey, you are getting better.
Well, thank you for that. You're sweet. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
You've went beyond the Call of Duty, sweetie, by having all those guests that you've had on that are experts in the field.
Well, I can't talk about this stuff, but I'm learning, and I am shocked every week. You know what? Donna Gilmore is probably one of the smartest women. Donna, I'm so proud to be engaged with these women. Mimi Gurman is as sharp as a tack. Like, honestly, and even Libby has changed the conversation. So it is actually really, you know what's interesting, Debbie? This is what I thought. Interesting that it's, we have this group of people on this radio station that are actually, the things we're talking about are important, and it's one of the few places I've seen where it all comes together. Like, you can actually hear it all, and all of us are it's not even anti-nuclear. We're pro-life. We're for real
Exactly.
Pro-life. That's what real pro-life does not mean you can't have an abortion. Pro-life means you believe in living and life and protecting Earth. Honestly. Yeah. I just, gosh, I have to say, this article, and I actually did leave messages at these places, and I said, look, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt and say that this was misrepresentation, but, if you think that nuclear is carbon-free, you're out of your heads. And if you if you have not, on one of them, this is what Donna Gilmore said. Ask them, do you know that we store our containers in half-inch thick containers, our storage waste, and it cracks in 20 years? And once it cracks, you cannot move the waste. Did you know that? That's why
that is one of the things that really concern me, Lonnie, is all the waste that they're producing. Where are they going to put this so that it doesn't contaminate the water, in 100 or a million years?
Ding, 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 Debbie. It is already contaminated.
Candace, honey.
Oh, Candace. Candace, thank you, Candace. I'm going to get my pen out and write down names. Hello.
I like Debbie.
I like Debbie, too. Thank you for correcting me. See, that's a true fan. That's one of the 4 agreements. That's one of the things you do when you're abiding by the 4 agreements. If you're in conversation with someone and they say something that's obviously wrong, as simple as your name, you just gently correct them. That's how you live the 4 agreements. So,
Wait, well, I have never seen you face to face. You don't know what I look like, practically.
I know. This is an interesting, although you know what I look like because I have my YouTube channel.
Exactly. You're like an old friend,
It is interesting.
Hours
community.
And hours.
You have?
Oh, yeah.
That's cute. Well, I actually want to start. I'm posting up now on Instagram. I do like little love bombs and truth bombs on Instagram on Nuts for Art. And I decided, because I'm trying to reach different people. I know they look. I don't get a lot of views if I put truth bomb, but if I put love bomb, people will look. And so, I'm sort of sneaking it in there, I'm showing them the planet and the Earth and going, this is why I can't stop talking about the harm that nuclear is doing, because we are ignoring it, Candace. When you said, I'm worried about what's going to come, let's be clear. Like these people in New York, they're in New York. Indian Point is leaking like a sieve. They should have evacuated and made it a point.
You just wonder what the doctor's offices look like in New York City.
Well, you know what this is really about? What I said earlier. Their mentality is, we're all going to it's over the top bad already. We might as well just make a lot of money, try to slow the methane down. This is their real attitude. I get it. I get their point of view.
Well,
It's like the nuclear is out of control.
Listen to this. You've always heard these conspiracy theorists talk about, the mass people, they want to kill everybody, except the very, very top. Well, 20 million, how many people live in New York City? That's
a lot of people. That's right. Bing, bing. Pretty easy. And you know what's really easier? Is you just don't tell them. They're drinking the water. It tastes the same. You know what I was thinking about this morning? Because I was thinking about this Father's Day issue for me. Like, I wanted to address that. I think it's very important for mothers and fathers on Mother's Day. If you've offended your children in a serious way, and you have, abandonment or violence or sexual abuse, apologize to them on Father's Day and Mother's Day. I think it's a serious. As a person who survived child abuse, I think that was the missing element for the healing for many of my siblings. There was no apology. So I wanted to talk about it, and then I started realizing, what's weird about that is like Mengele and all those people loved and adored their children, and that was the reason for doing it. They wanted their world to have a pure world of a good race, a good set of people who knew how to live according to God. That's what they believed. Seriously. That's why they had no problem throwing Jews in the gas chambers, babies and children. They're like, ugh, get rid of them because they're just half humans anyways. Yes, they're human, but they're the lower end of them. That's seriously how they did think about it. And those people came in, those same type. This is like Mengele gone mad. Jules has this phrase, science gone mad. What's gone on with the nuclear is Mengele gone mad. And the nuclear industry, I think, that article, did you hear that? You must have heard me read that article, and I'm thinking of rereading it by Dr. Weinberg again. The first time I read it, maybe I'll reread it, because sometimes it's better to reread something, where he calls themselves, it's the first time that phrase was ever used, the nuclear priesthood. And that they really do refer to themselves as the nuclear priesthood because we, as he said in this speech that he gave, we have entered into a Faustian agreement with the nuclear industry. We need them to protect us. But guess what? They have miserably failed in their jobs. These nuclear scientists who could open their minds to maybe understanding why this causes so much harm are being paid to just deny the harm it causes. And that is what is killing the planet.
Have you ever been in a car with a man that's lost his way and he will not stop and ask for directions or turn around?
Yes, and I have jumped out of a car and said, screw you, I'm not driving with you anymore. I got out of the car.
I'm telling you what, these guys have lost all over at that nearest gas station. Hey, how do we, get out of this?
It's not just, how we get out of it is first we need to admit we have the issue. Like, New York needs to be evacuated. We need an honest assessment. In my view, even Dr. Helen Caldicott said St. Louis, that area, needs to be evacuated, at least while they're remediating it for 10, 15 years. You cannot live there and, she said for an extended period of time. It is, if you look into what she means, read her books. People want to know how dangerous this is. Dr. Helen Caldicott did a lot of work on childhood diseases. It is really, we are not talking about simple things here. We are talking about all these families with children who it's a heartbreak to have a child with a disability. It affects that person the rest of their lives. You're telling me nobody in the nuclear industry thinks that's bad? The NRC itself allows 225,000 birth defects a year for every population of 1 million for every 2 rads in the air. Every 2 rads. Now, for a population of 1 million, now let's just think about how much rads we now have in the air, how many millions of people we have. Why do you think we have a cancer explosion? 32,000 extra cancers a year. Now, this is why we have this heavy financial medical burden, because the nuclear industry is causing people to get sick, just like the coal industry, but coal is not as egregious. The thing is with coal...
I think that there's more of a combination to that,
yes,
Lonnie, because...
all these spider hands on this, the conversation needs to go back to, do we have, I mean, honestly, Tesla had a way to give us all energy. That's the conversation. Give us the free energy from the universe and fuck off. You know, keep your money somewhere else. But this is the problem. At this
Let
point,
us have our air back. Let us have our water back.
We can't.
Let us grow our own food so that we know that what we're getting is pure food and not processed.
Well, you know what? They'll let us do all that. It's all going to be full of radiation anyways. People are not. Yeah. I mean, this is, gosh, we have got, I actually kind of, I believe in our thoughts are things. I think that's our only hope is we, like, and in fact, all these like self-help gurus, that's what they think too. It's like, you know, yeah, it's really bad, but the reality is that type of mentality of we rethink through this is that in the meantime, you have this vested interest of even these environmental groups, big money. This is not small money. 147 million, 121 million. You know what I mean? $104 million for the Sierra Club. This is really like, and this is 2013. Sierra Club was 14. Sierra Club was up to date. The other
is that paid by you and me, honey?
Well, these are no, you know who's it's paid by? Exelon. That's my guess. They pay no taxes on this money. These are nonprofit organizations. So that's what I was saying at the top of the show. I'm going to ask them who are their donors. And they are required to tell us who their donors are because they're nonprofits. Now, I did send an email.
Nonprofits making a profit.
Well, you know what? We need to understand why you and I are YouTubers. We are scoffed at by the establishment. I was in a meeting with Lloyd Marbett, very establishment anti-nuker. And I honestly, and I told him this directly in an email, I got it immediately that my presence or what I could offer professionally or even as an activist was not desired. And I said that to him. And that is really, we are scoffed at. We are the YouTubers and they do not, we're considered extremists. Mimi Gurman is considered, she's considered an extremist. You know why we're considered extremists? Because we speak our mind, we live our lives the way we believe. You know, there is a conversation.
We question known liars, Lonnie.
Yes. Well, the thing is, we're not willing to accept this. Nuclear environmentalists, influential environmentalist groups, yes, very influential. These people make they get big donations. Who do they get their big donations from? Listen to this. I'm definitely going to ask them. Listen to this one. Let me find this one. Natural Resource Defense Fund, the people who brought in $121,617,764, 2013. Their tax return 6/30 to 14. Oh, I see. It ends on 6/30. This is their most current. It ends 6/30 to 14. So their 14 just ended in. No, this is 16. This is not 15. Yeah. They should have their 14 up. So you know what happens with these people because it's June. They have. No, it should be up. If it's not up by July, it should be up. This should be up by July 1st. They're 14. I hope it will be. I'm going to bring that up. So this is how much money. Listen to their major contributions. $4 million. $3,015,000. $3 million. $11 million. $11 million. Major contributors. Now, who are they? Because they are not required to turn that into the IRS.
Well, that's their employer, though. That's who they take orders from.
But that does not give us the $121 million. I'm going to look at the whole tax return. To be honest. Like, a revenue officer once told me, Candace, that I could actually be a revenue officer. She's like, you should come work with the IRS. I'm like, I couldn't take the cubicles. Thanks, but no.
No.
And the
cubicle for me.
Huh?
Been there. I've been there, done that. I don't want to take that cubicle back.
Look.
No windows.
You know where you live. Now, let me ask you some questions. Do you mind if I get personal, Candace, with you and your family so we can understand the gravity of this situation? Are you in good health? Are you a strong? I figure you're about my age. I'm 60.
I'm 67.
Right. So are you healthy and well in your
kids? I didn't used to be, Lonnie. I mean, I think I told you this in a private conversation.
But you're healthy now. You've gotten yourself well.
I can stand up for like 45 minutes now where I could only stand up.
Hold on just 1 second. I want to add Mimi Gurman to the call. Hold on.
Sure.
Good morning. You're on the Age of Fission radio show with Lonnie Clark and our other caller, Candace.
Oh, great. Hi, this is Mimi Gurman from No Nukes Northwest calling in.
Hi. So great. I was talking about you and telling everybody how great you are.
Well, you know, it's a group effort, right? When you were talking about me, I was talking to Harvey Wasserman just now, giving him the lowdown on what happened at the Bill McKibben event last night.
Well, why don't you share that with us? I was just talking about what I found out about that. You know, that story that, did you read this on the news? It was all over. Environmental groups change tune on nuclear power. There are 3 major Sierra Club Environmental Defense Fund. I think I told you, Natural Resource Defenses. They actually are working with Exelon to reopen those nuclear power plants in Illinois.
Yes.
So, Candace, do you mind holding on? I really do want to let Mimi share her story of what happened last night.
No, hello, Mimi. I muted out. You're good.
Thank you, Candace. Thank you for calling. It was great chatting.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Candace, and hello to you as well. So last night we had planned for a long time, members of No Nukes Northwest, to go to the Bill McKibben event where he was speaking about 350 and his organization, and to make him speak to us with truth about the nuclear issue. And this is something that Bill McKibben has never done in totality. The only truthful thing he's ever said about nukes is that they're very expensive. True that. They are very expensive. But what's more than that is that they are deadly. And we've seen nuclear power create deaths all over the world from 3 Mile Island. And that created a lot of cancers that are still being, the data of which is still being squashed. But the world has access to it if you know where to go to look for it. And Chernobyl has caused, over 1 million deaths so far, not to mention the deaths that will continue to come from that. And, of course, Fukushima, the biggest death machine we've experienced so far on Earth. So what Bill McKibben refuses to say out loud to people, if this is something he's aware of, and I have to give him credit for being a smart person, that he must be aware of this, is that nuclear power really does trump every other energy as far as its dangers. It trumps coal in the death toll. It trumps oil and gas in the death toll. That's not to say that coal, oil, and gas are not dangerous. Of course they are. We've experienced those dangers too. So what we did last night was we had to insert the discussion of nuclear into the conversation that he was having with the audience. When he talked about coal, oil, and gas, there were times when I had to shout out no nukes to insert that into the conversation. When he talked about Germany doing a great job instilling solar across their country, I yelled no nukes. This is how we have to, at this point, insert our needs, our truth about nukes into the conversation at large among environmentalists who refuse to talk about it. If they're not going to talk about it, if they're not going to respond to emails, if they're not going to respond to our reaching out by Twitter, by phone, by, all of these different means that we did try to reach Bill McKibben and 350, if they're going to refuse to talk to us, we need to insert ourselves into the larger conversation. So last night during the question and answer period, unfortunately, the people were not allowed to speak their questions. We had to write them down. And then those questions got filtered out through, the man behind the curtain. And when the man behind the curtain appeared, he fed Bill McKibben the questions that he chose to give him. What he did say was, his first sentence was, well, it seems, and he said this like this, it seems like the largest amount of questions came from nuclear.
Wow.
So let's talk about this question. And interestingly enough, the question that he read was from someone who was not a part of our group. And I couldn't have been more pleased
How
to have
many
known
people were in your group?
6. And I couldn't have been more pleased to have, to know that there was somebody else out there in this audience who wanted to know about nukes,
That's right.
And the question was, can you please tell us if you think that nukes will be a part of the future? And his response was, of course, nukes are very expensive. And then he went on, at one point he mentioned that nukes are clean, that they are, he didn't use the word clean, he said they're carbon free, and we need energies that are carbon free, that don't, hit the earth with more carbon. And I yelled out, I must admit, I yelled out at that point immediately that was a lie, that nukes are carbon heavy, that we can't tell people that nukes are carbon free, and again, that was a lie.
Thank you.
People in the audience at this point were extremely agitated. They were yelling, "Shut her up," which actually wasn't to me, that was to another activist. And, but, to all of us. And in the meantime, what was happening was Bill McKibben's talking about activists, about needing to get arrested, about laying yourself out there, about how great Portland is with the kayaktivists. Well, that's who we were. Like, we are those people, right? And the audience is freaking out at us, those very people, as they nod their heads at Bill McKibben. Oh, isn't what he's saying just so great? And yet they're yelling at the very people who Bill McKibben is cheering on. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you didn't have a sign on that said, "I'm a kayaktivist."
How they could not know this was like, so at one point, a few of us turned around at these people yelling at us, and I turned around to a group of, older people. And I said, until you lay yourself out on the line, until you try to shut down a nuke plant, until you get in a kayak and try to stop an icebreaker from coming through our waters, you need to be quiet. And it got heated. So then, anyway, after he answered the no nukes question, he ended it by saying that, no, I don't believe that nukes will play a part in the future. Well, okay, great. Good. If he's the guy people are listening to, and he's going to say that out loud, that is a plus for us. It's not, it's not sort of this definitive, heavy statement saying, hey, nukes are really dangerous and we can't have that. Right. But still, it's in the right direction. And what we need right now is to get Bill McKibben in the right direction and have him start saying things that are true. Right. So afterwards, I decided that I wanted to go meet him because my question and my agenda had not been reached yet. So the usher told us, I asked how I could meet him. I said, I'm from NoNukes Northwest, from an environmental group, and would really like to talk to him while he's here. He said, oh, we'll go across the street. There's an after party. So my friend and I crashed the after party. We didn't have the right tickets, but we crashed the party. And I met Bill McKibben. And I said to him, as right before he was getting dragged off to speak again, I just went up to him and I said, Bill McKibben, my name is Mimi Gurman. I'm co-founder of NoNukes Northwest. When you say in a sentence that you used tonight that coal, oil, and gas are so dangerous, you must add nuclear to that sentence. That is why I'm here tonight. I'm here to make sure that in the future you add nukes when you talk about the dangers of coal, oil, and gas. I said, these people who you talk to depend on you for the truth, and if you omit that, you are not giving them the truth. And he just looked at me, sort of inquisitively, and said, okay, thank you, and walked off. It was slightly dismissive. It wasn't engaging, but, I'm glad I got to say that to him directly. That was my goal. My goal was to actually have him make that statement, but it was the best I could do in the moment. That's all I had was right then. So hopefully, in the future, when you hear Bill McKibben talk about the dangers of oil, coal, and gas, you will hear him talk about nukes. I do not have my fingers crossed that that will happen. What I do believe is that we can make that happen if more people across the United States and across the world, when they have an opportunity to see Bill McKibben You go to that event, you get a ticket for that event, and you show up and you insert the conversation of no nukes into what he's talking about. Because if we don't, it won't happen. And that's how this game works at this point. If we don't stand, go ahead, Lonnie. Sorry.
You know what Donna Gilmore suggested is an easier way, because a lot of times they will not allow you to speak, right? Unless if you ask some kind of question. But like this, her suggestion. I think I shared that with you in private, Mimi. She said, just ask. Do you understand? Do you realize? Do you know that we store our nuclear waste in containers that are a half an inch thick, that start leaking at 20 years? We know they leak at 20 years. They only last 100, and once they start leaking, you cannot move the waste. And right now, each one is 1,000 Chernobyls. Each tank is the equivalent of cesium-137 for 1,000 Chernobyls. Are you aware of that? Just ask them that. That's a simple one sentence that you can, if you write that down, guarantee they're not going to ask that. But if you're able to say that out loud to him, that's because she thinks he is seriously misinformed. She strongly suggested to me that if these people understood the gravity, right now they're listening to the nuclear industry and to government agencies who get their information from the nuclear industry. She said once you start informing, this is how she moved the Coastal Commission on California. She started when she could ask questions. She asked questions in the form of giving them information that they went, no, I actually didn't know that. And then they stuttered and backstammered, and then they began to change their position. That's how it worked for her. And that's a good way. She said they're seriously misinformed.
It's a really good way, and overall, I think that's a really great action, to have people from all over, when you have an opportunity to talk to these people, to use facts like that. For me last night, my question to him, my intent was to make him talk about nukes as dangerous. That was my intent. I wanted to hear him say, nuclear power is dangerous. So my question that I had written down, which was not asked, probably because I wrote my name on there and that I'm from NoNukes Northwest, was my question was, can you please talk about the dangers of nuclear power and how those dangers affect all of us and all living things on the earth? And had that question been asked, there would be no way that he could have sort of tiptoed around the question. He would have had to have come out either against the dangers of nukes, meaning that in what I'm trying to say is that he doesn't think that nukes are dangerous, or to admit that nukes are extremely dangerous to all living things on Earth. And so I was trying to get him to deal with that. But when I actually saw him, I had just seconds before pulling him away, So I had to just use a sentence that he used in his speech and tell him what I told him.
I think
he needs to add nukes to that.
I think that's awesome. I think that's very timely, because you know what? Here's a guy. This is the organization. His quote forte is climate crisis. I bet if you talk to him, he's like, well, I don't really know that much. I listen, blah blah blah. I bet you 2-to-1 the guy is really misinformed, like Donna said, because the big guys.
I wouldn't be surprised. Nobody knows these facts except those of us who work against it.
For these three organizations, the Sierra Club, Environmental Defense Fund, Natural Resources Defense Council, to work with Exelon to reopen decrepit, falling apart. Those facilities are being closed for a reason. Not because they're doing well, but because they are losing money, they're expensive, they're broken, there's leaks, there's all kind. We do not keep track. So I guarantee you those can of worms around there. And it is an outrage that these organizations, but Bill McKibben looks up to them. You know what I mean? Like $350.
I don't even know. I don't even know who people look up to at this point. What I think is that this misinformation goes out and it just starts to get spread among people who just refuse to question it. And they accept this stuff. And this stuff is unacceptable.
Well, it's like the lies in this article. I mean, the Wall Street Journal, I was saying this when I first started the show. This article that I was reading, and I haven't been able to get through it because it's just infuriating. Environmental groups change tune on nuclear power. And I read this story yesterday, and I was like, what? And what they're saying is the same lies provides roughly 20% of U.S. electricity, 60% of carbon-free electricity, lies, lies, and lies, and that is never questioned. And we're considered extremists for questioning it.
Right, and in the terms of, we overheard a group when we crashed the party. I was waiting for my friend to come back from where she was in the party, and I was listening to a group of men. I actually wasn't even listening, I was standing there. And this group of men were talking, and they were very loud. I think they were already getting drunk. And it was a very catered event, by the way, afterwards, the party we crashed. So they're getting drunk and they're loud, and I hear one man go, "Oh yeah, there's always going to be the radical fringe," and like tonight, yelling out things like "No nukes," you know, and it's just the radical fringe that we're never going to get rid of them. They're always going to be there, and he's saying this, and I'm standing right there. Then the next guy says, "I know, you'd think that they would just take a shoe off and throw a shoe at him." You know, like the old Bush thing, right?
Wow.
And so I'm listening for what they're actually saying. And Nancy comes back, and I told Nancy, and she goes, "Oh, these people right behind me?" And she turns around and opens up this circle of these men, and she says, "I think you're talking about us. We're the ones who shouted that out, and this is what you need to understand." And she goes into talking with them directly about Whoops 2, also known as the Columbia Generating Station, which is our nuke plant in the Pacific Northwest, which is rated like in the top 5 of the worst nuke plants in the United States, which needs to be shut down yesterday. And she starts to inform them, these men who are getting drunk and calling us radical fringe. And then you know what happens? One guy asked a question, and it was a good question. It was a question that he had about nuclear waste. And, well, is it true that such and such happens? And we said, actually, it's worse than that, and this is what happens when that happens, and the reason that we need to shut this down is that we are continuously creating more waste, and we have nowhere to put it. And he's, I've been wondering about this for a while, and then he said, "I have to tell you that I appreciate what you did tonight, yelling out no nukes into this speech." And this wasn't the guy who called us radical fringe, but he was in the circle of the men of this, making fun of us. And so you never know where you can make a difference. And you have to assume that you can make a difference, at least in a conversation, and that conversation is going to have a rippling effect. Mm-hmm. And so for those people who are so frustrated by the power of the
money.
Industries, all of the industries, right? It's incredibly frustrating. It makes you feel paralyzed. And as a human being, not as an activist, but as a human being who understands the reality of the dangers of nukes, you have a responsibility to the earth. That's to right. Speak up wherever and whenever, and most importantly, however you can. If you have to insert yourself into, a group of people making fun of anti-nuclear environmentalists or the anti-nuclear movement, remember that they don't know what they're talking about, and insert that wave into their discussion. Go to these leaders who people follow and insert the truth into the discussion.
That's right.
Is it going to change the earth? Well, probably not. Is it going to perhaps shut down a nuke plant a little bit sooner? You bet. The only way we get to do that is to make people understand that nukes need to be shut down, because it's the thing that isn't being talked about.
That's right. It's like yesterday, I actually called all these organizations and left a message on them, and I was mad. I said, you know what? I hope that this is misinformation. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt that you do not understand the grave situation of those nuke plants in Illinois. But you're listening to the industry, and the fact is the waste out there is stored in half-inch thick containers that's leaking. You can't move the waste, and you want to restart them. You have to insert that one fact alone hits everybody in the eyes. When you tell them that in Europe they store the waste in 18 to 25 inch thick containers, in the United States we store them in a half-inch thick container that leaks in 20 years and only lasts 100. And after 20 years, once it starts leaking, you cannot move the waste. If it starts leaking, that waste is not getting moved. We know that. Right. The NRC knows it already. And that's what we're allowing to be built. That's what has been built, which means essentially where all those nuke plants are, people need to move. Let's be clear. care because in 20 years, they're all 20 years old. It's producing 1,000 Chernobyls every single year. It is a grave situation. This is why they're summarily ignoring it, I think, because they know it's the situation is so grave. They might as well make money, try to slow down the methane, cool it down, like let's at least let people live. And if you get cancer, birth defects, we're going to rely on science to help us through. I think that's their mental attitude.
One of the things that I started to talk to people about is people who don't understand nukes is let's just look at the money for a second. Okay, so a nuke plant takes billions and billions of dollars to build, and it just takes a moment to crash, and it takes billions and billions and billions of dollars to potentially clean. But that cleanup is sort of fake in the sense that we can't really clean this up. Only time can clean these things up when you really get a little bit more, not esoteric, but real about nuclear waste that is exposed. It takes hundreds of thousands of years to clean that up, right? Mm-hmm. So we can't put a number on that. But the things that we can put a number on, imagine building houses for all of the houseless people in the United States. Imagine building schools for people who need better school buildings. We could fix every single problem in our social society in the United States if we undid nuclear. And so I just talk to people about that now. Would you rather us put billions into like Watts Bar 7, which just took 43 years to build and 2 days to fail?
Right.
43 years to build. It just went online. It took 2 days to fall apart. 2 days. That is tens of billions of dollars to build a nuclear plant for the last 43 years. It failed in 2 days. Imagine for 43 years what we could have been doing with billions of dollars for our people who are in need.
Yeah. Well, actually, think of that community where it's at. Those people have been suffering for quite a while. None of that money's really gone into the community in those areas.
Oh, it hasn't gone into the community at all.
It's just so outrageous. Here we have these environmental groups working against our own best interest. Why? Because they make hundreds of millions of dollars a year doing it. You know how much a salary is of the Environmental Defense Resource Center? $500,000 a year. That's his salary. $500,000 a year. Thank you, but no, I think that's egregious, personally. And I don't care. I know he has consultants telling him that, well, you're bringing in 100, 200, 150 million. That's an appropriate salary for somebody. It's only $500,000. Don't worry about it. It's a reasonable salary.
Well, again, it's one thing for your listeners to know the facts that you bring them. It's another to do the follow-through, which is, and I'm speaking to Lonnie's listeners, it's what Lonnie does. She does the follow-through. She writes emails to these people to state her opinion. She asks them poignant questions. She demands a response so that she gets a response. And if she doesn't get a response, she doesn't stop there. And so when Lonnie has issues with any kind of an organization, whether it's a supposed environmental organization or a nuclear organization.
We have 30 seconds left.
Okay, so anyway, folks, do something.
Yes. I tell people put their courage feet on because it's hard to do it. We have to be brave, and we have lost our courage, and we just have to decide we're going to do it in the face of it all because it is that urgent. It is urgent that we contact these organizations and tell them, get on the right side, get an education away from the government, away from the nuclear industry. Find out the facts yourself. Use the information on the EPA and the NRC websites. They will tell you the truth. So put your courage feet on. Thank you, Mimi, for calling in, and congratulations on the actions that you did with engaging Bill McKibben. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lonnie.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Katie.